chain risk management, which I mentioned to you, is all about the intelligence-driven roadmap to success. So in this increasingly complete security landscape, with threat action and vendors changing tools rapidly, managing third-party risk has become an uphill task. So to give us more and talk to us more about this is Mr. Suarabh, President, Research Delivery and Operations of Firma, one of our sponsors for today. Thank you very much, and please a round of applause to Mr. Suarabh.
Hey, thank you, Paolo, and hopefully everybody can hear me loud and clear after lunch.
Yes,
it's a nice
hopefully
cloudy
yours
afternoon,
as well.
and yeah. So, all right, we're talking about supply chain. Well, something that has made inroads ever since a few decades. It's the backbone of businesses, and now in the digital world, even more inroads being made with software supply chain. But we'll talk about the overall supply chain risk management. As we formally say and have been sharing, that all of us are in entity in our entirety are risk managers. We manage risks on a different basis. And let's try and take a look as to how intelligence is going to help us, and an intelligence-driven approach is going to really help us being successful in managing supply chain risk. All right, traditional supply chain, we all know it used to be a very sequential affair, very clear exit, very clear out entry points. There are stages which will interact with different people, and you knew what to expect as part of every stage. In the digital supply chain network, every stage has an ability of interacting with every other stage. You have multitude of interactions, multitude of entry points, exit points, and that is where you cannot no longer have just specified or specific controls at each stage, expecting only one set of outputs or one set of inputs, right? Expecting one set of outputs and one set of inputs. So the supply chain has really evolved. And I think for those who have been in the software stage, if I move to the next slide, it's all about understanding the predicaments of supply chain. Well, more than 40% of security breaches in 2020 and more than 60% of them in 2021, which is not even finished, are all resultant out of indirect attacks against weakest link. And that is what we are looking at when we need to manage our supply chain and logistics and risks associated to it, right? You have various companies across various domains, specifically people, processes, and technologies, and they are trying their best to have control over risks associated with this. But one of the most important component is forgotten, which is trying to take a comprehensive look at the overall and the entire spectrum of supply chain, because we have this traditional scenario that, oh, it's not under my control, it's not within the perimeter, so guess what, somebody else is managing it and we are expecting that things will be working well. That seldom happens. One of the golden rules of outsourcing is you get only what you ask for, and if you do not ask and do not manage those security risks and digital risks and supply third party and fourth party vendor risks, and if you do not have the right controls, the right setups in place, chances are you'll have a very rude awakening one day in the morning with a ransomware attack or a malware attack or a data leak that will be causing havoc to your brand. Now, why supply chain needed? We all know there is digital transformation across the globe. In the post-pandemic world, you had people working from home, which means that people are no longer available in one single factory space or one single office space, and everything cannot be in source because anyways, everybody is working from home and you have various vendors also collaborating there. So we need to make sure that in these changing scenarios in the digital transformation world, you know, businesses need to be really minimized, which is why you need to make sure that your supply chain is really being looked after when it comes to the exposures related to third-party vendors or fourth-party vendors. And it can be from any places, right? It can be them managing applications, it can be them developing code, it can be them handling the data or entry or exit points into your environment, you name it, right? And it is very important for security teams and businesses to really look into it. And not too long ago. They say the attack that started it all. I say the attack that spilled it all. Starting in 2019, well, that is where the actual pieces really started from, right? The SolarWinds, the infamous SolarWinds attack. And you can really see how adversaries, which are either say state-sponsored or cyber criminal groups, really can take a very simple piece of software, and this is an example of software supply chain, wherein a simple piece of a patch making inroads and getting it deployed well across thousands of locations. And guess what? They had a free access and a free rundown, and the complete impact of the overall incident is still being looked into, is still being accessed, is still being assessed, right? And really, what are some of those things that really come out as part of this? And I will cover some of these later in the details. Is all about, you know, when it comes to software supply chain, the need to have software built, rollout, and integration validation. You just do not take any piece of code. You just do not roll out anything and everything, and you just do not validate every piece when it comes to end-to-end integration and then roll it out. It's also about the ethos of what we keep talking about, which is building the shift left, wherein the development, monitoring, and operations work side by side. More importantly, right, in the software supply chain scenario, you do have the need to really validate the integrity. And how do you do that? You do that by, let's say, file or software integrity check that we all have been told and have been aware of, but we seldom do it. How many times people download patches and you validate MD5 signature of that particular patch file as suggested by the vendor? Well, this was a classic case. Obviously, nobody did it. It's also about bringing into the monitoring of patches and upgrades management processes together with the validity checks, right? So it's about zero trust system and applications and people. It's really about data hygiene for software. It's about the entry and exit points of the software. Whenever a software or a patch is onboarded, right, what is the data is it consuming? It is consuming, for, let's say, the operating system version, or it is consuming the profile that you have. Is it consuming something extra? Is it trying to download or exit using some more extra data being written somewhere out there? Is it an explorer, or it's an IE explorer, or things of those kind, really? So I think the attack that really spilled it all told a lot more, and told to the market and to the professionals and all of us the importance of supply chain, the importance of supply chain even in this software spectrum, because we are with the connected scenario and ecosystem wherein any tool and any application talks to any other application or third-party vendors, fourth-party vendors. You are there on the cloud, you are interacting via internet, via social. It's really all bringing to the fore the importance of supply chain management. So moving on, we have identified the problem. Yes, there is a problem statement. How do we address it? First and foremost, we all need to have visibility. Do we have a clear understanding of the doors and windows into the organization and third parties? Please remember, it's all about the weakest link. Don't look at your strongest link wherein everything is under control. You're going through, a VPN tunnel and all that. It's about the weakest link. It's about identifying those entry points into your attack surfaces. Do we have visibility on all nodes within the ecosystem? Do you know what are the entry points, exit points? What's really changing? What interactions are really happening in each of those nodes? Do we have an ability, or we need to have an ability of real-time continuous monitoring to identify things like shadow IT, something that was created just because of an adoption of a new application or a component or expansion into the market? All the businesses do that at any point of time. And after the project is done, somebody's just forgotten the poor instance sitting out there. Do we have an understanding of the shadow IT? Do we have the understanding of forgotten IT? Do we have understanding of some of those? All in all, do we really have an understanding of our external attack surface when it comes to technology stack, when it comes to process stack or process gaps, when it comes to your certificates, when it comes to your misconfigurations, leaky buckets? All these are entry points into your perimeter or anybody else can come in, whether through your third party, fourth party, into your environment, run away with your crown persistence or a reconnaissance. So it's all about trying to understand and identify, gain a visibility out of it, and then trying to adopt really, initiatives or processes, procedures, controls that can really shrink your attack surface. That is the first thing that organizations and cyber defenders really need to do, gain visibility. Now, if you have gained visibility, it needs to go a little bit more into detail in understanding different insights. Are we aware of the movers and shakers in our external threat landscape? What's really changing out there? We all very famously used to traditionally say, yes, we have our own set of perimeter defense systems, but tell you one thing, 24/7, somebody's sitting out there trying to look at how hackable and how easy it is for them to enter in, utilizing even the smallest entry point. It might be the weakest vulnerability or the lowest level vulnerability, but identifying that, utilizing an exploit or developing an exploit and entering into your perimeter, and voila, they have access to your crown jewels. So are we aware, or we need to be aware of our external threat landscape? Understanding how each assets and the gaps and vulnerabilities are really being lined up, for exploitation and execution of the cyber kill chain. Every asset will have its own vulnerability. Do you have unnecessary ports open, as an example? And these are assets which are visible to internet. What is visible to you, trust me, to cyber criminals, it's more visible to them. And this is not only about your assets, it's about the assets of third-party vendors, your fourth-party vendors. Do we know the latest vulnerabilities and contextual information that is really mapped to some of those third-party, fourth-party assets that are being utilized, or maybe indirectly utilized in serving you as their client, right? Are we equipped enough to track the capability of these cyber criminals? What are the latest tools, techniques, malwares they are using? How has it really changed, or how have they evolved in their adoption of various off-the-shelf malwares or ransomware to really look into organizations that they are going to be really target? Are they really targeting a specific industry? Are they targeting a specific geography or adoption of a particular software? That all insights, details, you need to be aware of, you need to be equipped of. Are there activities being monitored? As an example, do you have an understanding of the latest IOCs that they are currently utilizing for launching attacks against some of the target organizations? And understand in deep, right? Trying to associate everything and create a comprehensive threat story. Let's all understand as cyber defenders that the game is not about utilizing 10 different tools and 10 different views and trying to understand point 1 here, point 2 here, point 3 here. The game is about, do we have that whole comprehensive threat story or risk dossier, as we call it in our space? Do we have an understanding of what is the vulnerability? What are the exploits associated to it? Is there a campaign that is being launched by a cyber criminal or a threat actor? Is there a specific campaign infrastructure that they are utilizing to launch these threats out there? You need to be able to understand all that. You need to be able to understand some of those vulnerabilities and attacks so that you can really take corrective actions. Please understand, and as cyber defenders, all of us need to really come to a sense with this piece that it is no longer a case of an event-driven approach. It always has to be a case of an intelligence-driven approach. Do not wait for the attack to land next to your next to your entry point or into your perimeter access point. You need to be able to understand what is really coming your way, what is really out there that everybody else can see, possibly you cannot see. That is all about trying to gain insight, and then utilizing that all this visibility to really get into the spectrum of actionable intelligence. It's all about trying to tell you in a predictive way what is really coming your way. Are there any assets that have been identified with possible vulnerabilities that may be utilized which may be your asset, which may be your third-party asset or fourth-party asset, which they are utilizing to serve you, or even if they are not able to serve you using those assets directly, as long as they have access to your environment, well, it's going to be very soon a game over, because your security defense is as good as your weakest link. It's about trying to enrich real-time information from the market, from the spectrum out there, with threat indicators to highlight, are there any impact to any of those nodes in your ecosystem that you can really remediate, you can really reduce, you can take some proactive actions before it really wreaks havoc in your ecosystem, in your environment. And the ability to be able to see how the attackers are really going to really coming your way. What are some of those mitigation strategies? Do you need to upgrade your third-party checks? Do you need to upgrade your incident response checks? Do you need to upgrade or update your patch management processes, your vulnerability management processes, any of those controls out there? Because your external threat landscape is moving. It's changing continuously. Few of our customers keep telling you, oh yes, I did a scan and this is how it looked like, and the scan was performed 6 months ago. And I tell them, the moment you perform the scan, things must have changed immediately after the scan finished. So it's all about trying to see that, see how your external threat landscape really is changing. So now let's go into a little bit of details of each of these areas that I have covered. Let's understand third-party and attack surfaces. It's about identifying your third-party vendors, your supply chain partners, and identifying salience related to, do they have any domain vulnerabilities? Is there some weaknesses in their certificates? Do they have configuration issues, unnecessary ports which do not have the right controls? How's their IP domain reputation? And best, and one of the classic cases that we see out here, do their cloud buckets have any weaknesses? Is there some leaky bucket out there? We have had a couple of cases wherein we have advised some of our clients that their third-party vendor was actually sharing a piece of code for a plugin that they were developing, which was quite easily and openly accessible in Git. Do you have those kind of scenarios? So do you really understand your attack surface? Are you identified assets and really able to map around with the risks and causes and remediations? And it's all about trying to do this consolidated in a view, right? One view, one platform gives you that consolidated, comprehensive view around all these pieces related to your attack surface, your vulnerability intelligence, your attack methods, any dark web exposures, or your digital risks, or anything around your industry or technology, any trend that you can really see. So it's all about identifying about yourself, your third-party vendors, your fourth-party vendors, your software supply chain, all in one snapshot, right? All in one real-time dashboard. It's about the external threat landscape that is continuously being assessed for new threats and risks. It's moving out there. It's changing every time. There is a new exploit. There is a new vulnerability. Tons of them being recognized on a daily basis, and there are many which are not even pushed out there in the public forums. There are so many ransomwares, malwares being sold out there. Are you able to discover those third-party risks before it really starts affecting you? And utilizing this attack surface insight to really drill down the compliance, the regulation, the due diligence, security due diligence on your third-party vendors. Gone are the days that you will give one third-party checklist, the vendor will say, take yes, all, everything, I comply, and then you forget and the vendor forget, and it's the cyber criminal which is reminding you that, guess what, something happened at some point of time, but things have really progressed further. This is about doing that assessment real time. This is about understanding those pieces real time, understanding what is to be remediated, and are there any recommendations around that real time, all in one view. It's just starts with attack surface, moves on to vulnerability intelligence. Yes, there are practices, and I'm not saying that they are not needed. There are practices of carrying out VAPTs. But do you have a visibility of what is that vulnerability out there that is being exploited by a cyber criminal or a cyber criminal group, as we call them, threat actors? Do you know what is the latest exploit associated to that? Do you know what is the campaign infrastructure being utilized, maybe IOCs, IOAs, being utilized by some of these criminals to really exploit those vulnerabilities. You need to be able to understand that. More importantly, you need to be able to understand those exposures in your ecosystems. What are those new vulnerabilities? What are those new exploits that can be utilized by cyber criminals? Not by straight away attacking you, but by attacking your third-party vendors, your fourth-party vendors, your supply chain ecosystem, because that is something that usually goes without any real-time validation, without anybody really, a pair of dedicated eyes or teams really looking into it. And that is the easiest access point for these cyber criminals. Are they prioritized? You will usually utilize CVSS scoring numbers, but what about, is there a low-level vulnerability? Maybe the CVSS score is 3, but that is the one that is being heavily exploited out there in the wild. Do you have an understanding of that? Based on that, are you able to prioritize your mitigation? Yes, nobody is saying that do not look at the CVSS score 9 or 10 vulnerabilities or 8 vulnerabilities, but you should have a visibility of what is being exploited out there, and you should have a capability of understanding that this is something that I need to remediate in my third-party ecosystem, in my fourth-party ecosystem, or in my environment to make sure I get a better ROI. Do we have a deeper understanding? As I said, we're all risk managers. Do we have a deeper understanding of some of those cybersecurity risks and threats that are relevant to our third parties? It's about, classifying vulnerabilities, prioritizing them in real time, trying to attribute it, correlate it to the exploits, some of the attack surfaces, or some of the assets that are being exposed out there, or maybe some of those attacks that have been really launched out there. And also in your environment, we are always changing. We are always introducing new components, new applications, new locations, new services. And with each one of those, you get a ton of third-party or fourth-party vendors being introduced into your ecosystem, whether you like it or not. We need to have that deeper understanding. And vulnerability intelligence really is a power of augmenting your vulnerability management. You uncover some of those vulnerabilities that you are going to fix 3 months later because it was a low-level vulnerability, but understanding that, yes, it is being heavily exploited out there, you are trying to now fix it earlier so that your cyber posture management is very well rock solid. Understanding some of those components that continuously evolve so that your external threat landscape, your understanding of your external threat landscape is really out there. And with all this, you try to get visibility, you try to move away from being caught unaware by some of those cyber attacks that can actually be launched against you, which quite many times results into unplanned downtimes, not to mention your crown jewels being leaked, and obviously all the reputational and brand damage, making a dent into your shareholder value. And it's about prioritizing those risks with actionable insights. It's about understanding, are there any IOCs that can be blocked? Can we have an understanding of what is that cyber criminal or threat actor that is utilizing these vulnerabilities? Do they have, are they very heavily focused and at one particular set of industries or one particular set of geographies, and really understand in the digital space, in the connected space, how it can be very well mitigated. Look at the third party and digital risks. Many a times we have not a clear understanding of our digital risk profile and exposure. Many a times we are looking at multitude of tools and we do not get that one comprehensive view, let alone understanding the digital risk exposure of our third party or fourth party. In the outsourcing world, usually in traditionally people outsource for the least amount of money. And as I have been telling to many of my clients, in the outsourcing space, you only get charged for what you ask for. And if you didn't ask for security, it ain't gonna be delivered. So you need to understand what is that digital risk profile of your third party vendor, your fourth party vendor. Do you have an understanding of, are there any impersonations, infringements? Because all it needs is one phishing email utilizing one of the impersonated domains of your third party vendor coming to you saying that, hey, Mr. S, can you go ahead and clear a payment of $1 million? And some busy executive in your organization, all that the executive needs to do is click on that link. And well, an interesting but an unfortunate journey has started just there. It's all about understanding their assets. It's all about understanding, any lookalike social handlers, any negative social sentiments or public sentiments, any exposure of social, of some of those files, source codes, data. It could be a data of your third party that could be leading into your environment. It could be some of those malicious mobile app that they must be developing, that is being developed for your organization, and that has a component which is malicious in nature. It's all about that. It's all about trying to understand, do you have some of those identity leaks? Do you have intellectual property leaks, personal data? Is your code or one of your disgruntled employee selling out some piece of information in some of those underground forums? It's all about all those pieces that really can build up, and on a bad day can really create a lot to manage and lot to ask for via your third party and fourth party. So a dashboard really giving you a view of all that should be something that should look like this. It should have a very clear understanding of each and every observation or insight. It should give you everything in one clear dashboard. It should tell you what is the risk of every entry, how hackable you are as an organization based on all these insights out there, which means how lucrative are you to a cyber criminal. It should be about the risk score of you as an organization. It should be a dashboard telling you you have 50 attack surfaces that you need to fix from critical, high, medium, low. Here is the priority. Here is the remediation. Here is the recommendation action. Go fix it. It should be telling you you have 150 certificates all across your environment, all across you, your third party, your fourth party, your certificate, 20 of them have expired or about to expire. Do you have an understanding of it, or are you opening up yourself to an unnecessary cyber attack, exploiting some of these gaps? It should be all about your data breaches, your impersonations, your infringement, but all visible to you in one dashboard, all telling you based on facts, not based on paper algorithms. I reiterate, based on facts, based on something that is being monitored 24/7, based on something that is captured in the tool that is given to you for remediations via APIs, that is given to you in a consumable manner on your dashboard, so that you can really understand the trend. You can really understand the latest exposures. You can really understand some of the vulnerabilities you need to fix, some of the vulnerabilities in your externally accessible assets that need to be fixed. It could be an IP related vulnerability. It could be something related to your data leaks, to your credential leaks. Really, in all a sense, it's all about gaining that visibility, gaining that understanding on the insights available there, and really matching it up with actionable actions, remediations, recommendations, so that you can move away from the current state to a better state that is far well controlled, that has an understanding and a control of its supply chain ecosystem, its third-party vendors, its fourth-party vendors, and that can really reduce the cyber attack risk from a very high percentage to a very low percentage. All right, let's build a roadmap of success by really gaining insights to third parties' digital risk profile. With that, back to you, Paulo.
Okay, thank you very much, Saurabh. And thanks for sharing with us about the third-party risks and how to mitigate these threats and have deep insights also into our current landscape. I think it's really tough. Getting all the software inventory or VOMs that we have in our current landscape, and that's a nice dashboard that you just shared with us right now. How much effort is it to actually come up with that kind of dashboard?
Well, that's a very good question, Paulo. I think it's the effort and experience of all the people at Cypherma, is the effort of understanding where the data should be gathered, is the effort of making it, and this is completely non-intrusive, so no agent to be installed. It's the effort of understanding what really matters and what should be controlled, and how some of those third-party risks have been evolving and have been, creating havoc for organizations. So a lot of experience has gone in, a lot of thought process based on how we see it, how some of us have handled these scenarios in our previous life as working in some of those organizations, and more importantly, listening to the scenarios and use cases of our clients and customers. And now you have this kind of a dashboard, which is used by many Fortune 100, 500 organizations and by their teams, and they really find this actionable, very clear, very detailed, and being able to be presented an opportunity to understand how to make some of those critical risks and how to critical decisions and how to manage those critical risks. Paulo.
Yes, I mean, thanks for sharing. And I think from the tech buyer's point of view, from your customer's point of view, regarding this software supply chain, what are the practical things which can actually, that the customers can actually do to evaluate vendors? This is a question from Selena.
Sorry, Paulo, your voice is a little bit feeble. Could you speak up again?
Yeah, sorry. The question is from Selena. She was asking about, from the tech buyers or customers' point of view, what are the practical things which we can actually do to evaluate vendors?
Yeah, so I think it is one about gaining a visibility on their practices. It is one about trying to understand what are some of those software controls that they have put in. It's also trying to put some of those controls, as I had briefly discussed about in the SolarWinds case, wherein, it's all about, carrying out those integrity checks, making sure that, it might not be the very first instance, but it might be the next instance of a patch being released out there that might create an inroad into your into your utilization of that particular piece. But really, it's all about zero trust of systems, applications, people, understanding the entry and exit points of the software, as well as the hygiene, and being able to inbuild or validate that shift left approach. But all that can be only done if you have a visibility of what your third-party vendor is really trying to do. And if you do not gain that visibility, if you are not aware of some of those exposures out there, some of those impersonations or data leaks out there, credential leaks out there, it will become very difficult for you to be very pragmatic in getting these implemented in real time, Paulo.
Yeah, thanks for that again, Saurabh. We have Doc Def back here. Doc Def, maybe you'd like to ask the question from Andre.
Yeah, so Andre's, hi, Doctor. Hi, Saurabh. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for sponsoring the event. And so, Andre, one of our members.
I know Andre. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm sure you know Andre. So I hope you don't mind his question.
No, absolutely not. He's a good friend.
Yes, he's a good friend. He's very insightful. How reliable are external agencies' ratings, such as BitSight, in evaluating suppliers' cybersecurity maturity? What else do we need to do to understand third-party risk? How reliable are external rating agencies such as BitSight evaluating suppliers' cybersecurity maturity?
No, I got the question, and thank you for asking that question, Andre and Mr. Anthony. I will reserve my comments on the first portion on how reliable. I don't want to badmouth anybody out there. But what I will definitely say is, as experts in our field, we need to really understand that is the assessment being done based on facts and technical pieces, or is the assessment being done utilizing a paper exercise? In the disaster recovery space, we usually say that, are you trying to do an actual disaster recovery or are you trying to do a tabletop exercise? I think that's the difference here, right? Do you understand really what are those observations which have been picked up in, let's say, your external attack surface or your impersonations and infringement that is really leading up to overall risk score and hackability score of an organization? Or do you have a scenario that, yeah, my risk score is looking really good, but there are 2 attack surfaces out there that are at the highest possible risk and that have so many vulnerabilities associated to it that can be exploited? So I think as experts, it is up to us to understand that is it utilizing each of these technical scenarios and technical assets, technical observation, and is that all getting consolidated up and giving you an overall score? And does that change in real time when you are remediating some of those or something gets added? In our tool, it does. But for others, all of us are a better guess out there. Now, the second part, that what else do you need to do to understand third-party risk? Well, it's all about trying to make sure that they are treated as much as part of your ecosystem, which means it's no longer a black box approach. It's about trying to gain visibility of what are those external attack surfaces identified for them, or external threat landscape identified based on their inclusion into your ecosystem. And for that, you definitely need human intelligence, but you'll also need tools like what we have in the market, which is trying to give you that visibility in a 24/7, trying to give you all those pieces so that you have that single dashboard wherein you can understand the comprehensive risk exposure. The point blank answer to the first portion of the question, I'll answer to Andre directly. I know him.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you, Suarabh. Okay, we've got one
Thanks.
more.
I know. I think that's it for now. Time's up. Actually.
Okay,
Sorry.
okay, all right. We'll
yeah,
route
we're
the other
running out of
question
time.
indirectly
But
to
then-
If
Suarabh.
there are any
maybe-
other questions, please feel free to reach out to us, Paolo.
Yeah, maybe you
Anthony
can
will be more
share
than
your
happy to
email.
Hello,
help
Suarabh,
people
sir.
out.
I got one question.
Sorry. Actually, we're running out of time. Who's this, Ram? Maybe-
One
maybe-
question, Paulo, just very important question.
No, because I
Suarabh,
think-
sir, how does your tool relate to SOC2 framework released by the AICPA for America?
So right now we are ISO 27000 and 14001 compliant. We are in compliant to the SOC framework, but do I have a certification for the tool? No, but it is work in progress. But yes, we are very much in compliant to some of those pieces out there. But again, I just want to reiterate and probably close it in the interest of time, but happy to have that conversation, Ram, offline. It's all about gaining visibility on your third-party risk and gaining visibility of your external threat landscape. The moment you have that visibility and the moment it is factual, I think it will go a long way in making sure the risk managers have a easy sleeping night.
Okay, I think that's it. Thank you very much for sharing, Suarabh. A big
you,
warm
thank you,
round
Mr.
of Zoom
Suarabh Lai.
applause to Suarabh.
Thank you.
President,
yes.
Research Delivery and Operations, Cypherma, and thank you for being the sponsors of the event. And again, there was a very important topic today, cybersecurity of supply chain risk management. Okay, so hackers know that you are defended, so to attack your